Kayla is physically more mature than her peers, which means she's going through the biological and physical changes of puberty. Puberty begins in the hypothalamus. Hormone production will then gradually increase, which will lead to the development of the sex characteristics. There are also a lot of negative effects for early maturing girls, such as Kayla. They tend to be at risk of depression, body image issues, seeking attention and association from older peers, higher risk of substance use, delinquency, school problems, and aggressive behavior. This could explain why Kayla is hanging out with the Year 9 group, especially if they are using drugs, and why she is withdrawn and not talking with her peers in her classes. Kayla is also going through some cognitive developmental issues. Prior to her entering adolescence, there was a significant growth in the synaptic pruning between the cells in her brain. She used to be able to take in lots of information. However, now that she is an adolescent, her brain is starting to remove the synapses that are not as important, making the more important synapses effective through myelination. This could be why Kayla is not doing as well in maths and science as she used to. Piaget's theory of cognitive development reveals that the development of human intelligence happens in distinct stages, and the driving force behind this development from one stage to the next is maturation. Even though Kayla has matured physically, she may not have mentally. She may also be struggling to understand the content of maths and science into her schemas, which is stopping her from progressing to the next stage. Another reason is that the information is over the capacity of her working memory, and she is suffering from cognitive overload. Maths and science are very content heavy, and the meta-language can be hard to wrap your head around. Kayla is also having social developmental issues. She is having difficulties socializing with peers her own age. She could be subject to bullying, and this is why she is withdrawn from other peers, making her at risk for mental illnesses such as depression and anxiety. Kayla's behavioral changes and risk-taking can be linked to biopsychosocial factors. Biological factors such as genetics and physical health are both connected with early maturation. Psychological factors can be linked to her cognitive development, which is then reflected through her personality, behaviors, and decision-making.
Hello, I'm Kayla's principal, Mrs. D, and I'm here to give you a brief overview of our justifications for the interventions we have designed for Kayla. Kayla is at a very vulnerable stage in her development as she transitions from primary to secondary school, develops physical changes in her body, and as her cognitive functions begin to shape her personality, behaviors, and decision making skills amidst a variety of environmental influences. Based on research, we have devised a number of interventions we believe are best suited to the unique position Kayla finds herself in. However, as with many things, they might have a positive or a negative impact on her. Firstly, we have recommended that Kayla attend a weekly session with the school counselor as she needs professional support to set her both short and long term goals. Through professional counseling, Kayla will be able to better build her resilience through professional resources and advice from a trained individual. However, this may cause Kayla further isolation from the rest of her peers as she will be stereotyped and singled out for seeking help. And professional help can be a slow process that requires a trustful relationship to be built over time. Kayla could also participate in after school extracurricular activities such as sports teams or art clubs and expand her social circle with those who share her common interests. These interventions are especially suited to Kayla as it occupies her time with meaningful and safe activities which eliminate risk taking behaviors she could potentially engage in. Furthermore, these interventions engage Kayla with physical and creative activities that provide her with a healthy outlet of emotions and pent up frustrations. And best of all, they're free. Nevertheless, these interventions require Kayla's own motivation and dedication to be successful. She needs to actively attend scheduled times and participate in all activities. It could also mean that she may lose her job and have financial repercussions as a result. And lastly, we have asked Kayla to reflect, recharge, and rethink. This is keeping a journal, eating a healthy breakfast, and getting enough sleep every day. These interventions will all help her in her biophysical and emotional development. It could also improve her cognitive abilities and her ability to consolidate newly learned information in classrooms. Once again, they are all up to Kayla's discretion to keep up. Working less could have financial repercussions, could cause more stress, and her keeping a diary could become tedious over time.
As part of this unit, I have discovered that there are many components that comprise of adolescent development and teaching. Prior to completing this unit, I thought the biological process of puberty was the only adolescent factor physically impacting the learning process of teenagers. Now that I have developed a complex understanding of the unit, I can see that there are other cognitive and well-being factors that must be considered when teaching teenagers. One of the main things I will take away from the unit is the material reflecting to the cognitive development of teenagers. I found the resources relating to synaptic pruning of brain cells very interesting and relatable to my experience as a teenager. In addition, I also enjoyed the material relating to developmental issues and well-being of teenagers. Prior to completing this unit, I was not aware of all the support and access education professionals have to assist them in providing health and well-being support to teenagers experiencing developmental issues. As a future professional in the field, I will use this information to support students' well-being and safety. On an individual level, I will aim to identify and reduce risk factors as well as identify and enhance protective factors for each of my students. This will not only help me get to know the students better, but also devise an action plan if the student's well-being or safety is ever at risk. Outside of the classroom, I will actively involve parents and caregivers in the implementation of any strategies I put forward to students. I would also apply Bronfenbrenner's ecological model to ensure my students' microsystem at home is reflecting positive influences on their day-to-day activities. I will also engage professional assistance if I believe the student is at risk. In my KLA area of geography, I will use these strategies to get the students actively involved in the wider community, as the student's microsystem and exosystem is also influenced by the influences in their neighbourhood and wider community. Community involvement is also central to the area of geography and as a result interrelates well with the ecological model I studied within this unit.
Hi, my name is Leila Abraham and I'm a student teacher. Based on the information I have gathered throughout the semester, I have begun to mold my future teaching philosophy based on positive psychology and student well-being. With this, I will incorporate strategies based on the biological developments of adolescence, especially considering the hot and cold cognitive modes of teenagers and how their behavior adapts to their environment. In combination, I will also consider the brain's ability to retain and process information based on the load it's placed under. I now recognize that teenagers mature at various stages in life depending on their age, their gender, their cultural upbringing, and their socioeconomic background. And with these factors in mind, I wish to plan my future lessons based on optimum student engagement with the content. To do this, I will consider the words I will use in everyday language to communicate with my future students. What has made the greatest impact on me throughout the semester is the way we have been communicated by our lecturers and our tutors. The use of positive psychology, positive attitude, and positive thinking, I believe, makes a greater impact on the students and their learning style than the content we put up on the whiteboard or the homeworks we assign to them. Using frameworks such as GRIT to cultivate performance-enhancing thoughts, which will reflect their performance-enhancing actions, will allow me to enable my students through praise and acknowledgement of their efforts. I now believe that what makes a greater impact on students and their learning experience is not what is in the curriculum, not the homework you set them or the assignments you assign to them, but the way you speak to them and the way you encourage them in their learning experience. Just as the contents of this semester will stay with me long after I graduate and in my future teaching career, I too hope that in the years to come, the way I teach my students, the way I engage with them in the classroom, will stay with them long after the class has finished and as they progress into their lives in the future.
Over the past 10 weeks, I have learned a lot about adolescents and how they develop. In particular, what stuck with me the most is how important mental health and well-being is and how this is influenced by the biopsychosocial approach. As Stanley Hall puts it, adolescence is a period of storm and stress. They're going through many biological and physical changes, as well as cognitive developmental issues and social developmental issues. My teaching philosophy is centered around creating a positive learning, supportive environment and ensuring that students are actively engaged in the lessons. I will base my teaching on the child framework. Mental health and well-being is extremely important to me, and I want to make sure that students are able to be themselves and feel comfortable in the classroom. My teaching area is science, more specifically biology and chemistry. For some students, science can be hard to understand as it is very content heavy with lots of scientific jargon. Drawing from Piaget's theory of cognitive development, I will use this theory to understand what cognitive stage students are in, which will help me carefully plan my lessons. As well as Piaget, I will use Vygotsky's sociocultural theory and use scaffolding to guide students who are struggling and then reduce the guidance once students have showed improvement. I will also use PETS, positive enhancing thoughts. By using PETS in the classroom, it will hopefully reflect upon the students and then increase their self-esteem and willingness to learn.